My name's Joel Sherman. I'm with Evan Schwartzmiller, and this is the Invent Podcast. On episode 5 of the Invent Podcast, Evan and I talk about the importance of personal environment. I personally think that this topic is something that isn't addressed as much when it comes to finding motivation and chasing goals, but it's something that I've noticed has a huge impact on my life. We talk about the importance of moving or changing your personal space to benefit default habits that we may have. We hope you guys take away something from this week's episode. Enjoy. Thank you guys for joining us on this week's episode of the Invent Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the environment that you're in and how it can motivate you to stay on your task for your goals and other things like that. I'd just like to point out before we get started, this is episode 6, and actually the average podcast length, I guess life, is episode 7. So next week we're getting close to that mark, and I guarantee you we will get at least 8 episodes. But after that, it's all in the air. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that I'd like to point out with the environment that you're in is if you're struggling with your habits and your motivations, the simple thing that you can do is move. If you don't feel comfortable, if you have bad habits, and nothing's tying you down, the simple answer is just to move. It's to get out of your space. And in my experience, personally, I left a lot of bad habits back in my hometown. When I came to college for the first time, I made sure I formed great habits in this new area that I was in, because I've been a huge procrastinator my whole life. And when I came to college, I forced myself to be on top of all my work, and waking up in the same space in this new environment, since I was not procrastinating, it forced me to, it just felt natural not to procrastinate.
Yeah, by staying in the same environment, you're almost like perpetuating these bad ideas, these bad habits. So if you can remove yourself from that, you have a better chance of breaking them. If nothing else changes, it's very hard to break these bad habits if you're in the same place. So like Joel was saying, if you have the opportunity to move, not necessarily like your house, but if you have the opportunity to remove yourself from that space, even for a short amount of time, that's going to give you way better chance of starting new habits or breaking bad ones.
And the thing that I constantly get reminded of is when I visit home and I'm back in my room, I notice myself falling back into the old bad habits that I have. And what I mean by that is when I wake up here in the morning, it's the same routine. I meditate for 10 minutes, I make my bed, and then I go to the gym. But when I'm at home, I go get a cup of coffee and I sit on my computer for about an hour and I drink a few cups and I have breakfast. And it may not be the biggest deal when I'm just visiting home and it's not my lifestyle. Definitely a lot of those bad habits and the lack of motivation starts to resurface a little bit.
Yeah, the same thing for me. When I go back home, I have a desk in my room, but it's not nearly the size of this desk, and it's very cluttered, and there's papers everywhere, and it's not the best work environment. So I notice when I'm home, I have a hard time getting work done in a timely manner. It takes me a long time to do pretty much anything. So I have the same experience as you. Going back home, you can start to fall back into the same habits, and it's not necessarily a good thing.
And knowing you from high school and you knowing me from high school, we sat next to each other in physics class. We know how much, me and you are both very big procrastinators. Mm-hmm. Just naturally, we were in high school. We'd always come into class and hey, did you do the homework? Nope. Did you? Nope. And a lot of that stems from the environment that you're in. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And especially with other motivational podcasts and other things that I'm listening to, this doesn't get talked about a lot. And it's something that I realized very early on when I moved away from home, was that your environment is so important. And the habits that you form, I feel like, are rooted in the space that you are in. And that, like I said earlier, I forced myself into good habits when I got here. And when I get up here and when I live here, I just naturally, my default setting is just good habits because I've made sure I formed those.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing too, is when you find yourself in a new environment, you have to, from the beginning, establish these good habits, or else it's just going to be back, right to the same place you were at before. And you kind of touched on this, but our environment, we're surrounded by it 24/7. This could be like your workplace, your desk, your cubicle, your office, you commute to work. All these things, they play a role in your life, and it's easy to overlook them. I know, if you're commuting to work, can be kind of toxic sometimes. You're screaming at the other drivers and stuff like that. But you might want to take a look at that. Say, am I in a good place right now? Am I in the best environment I can be in?
It contributes so much to your mental health. And another thing that I have is if you're kept in the same place for whatever reason, you have a family or you have pets or you just love the place that you are, my biggest advice is to just completely rearrange everything. And when Evan and I came back from winter break, we rearranged our room entirely. And if you're watching on YouTube, our desks used to be facing this wall, and they weren't facing each other. And we didn't do that because we had bad habits the first semester, but it was because we knew that we would have brand new schedules, and we let it serve as kind of a reset on our life. And I made a new workout regimen, and I had a new class schedule, and I was super on top of it for the first few weeks after we rearranged everything. And then waking up with this new setup, it kind of forced me to do things in the routine fashion, like I was saying earlier with the default setting. If you force yourself for a week or 2 weeks to do this thing, it becomes like the default habit, the default setting.
Yeah, the example of our desk, that's huge. The day we did it, I think like the day after we went out to Walmart and bought whiteboards, we completely changed our whole setup here, and it's been amazing. We've definitely, I know, to speak for myself, I've been more productive like this. Something about facing the wall is just very, I don't know, it's not darker, but you're not facing the light, you're not facing the open room.
With the whiteboards, actually, I really want to touch on this. We got these whiteboards, and I started actually writing down every morning when I woke up. It was my routine. So I get up, I would put my clothes on for my workout, I would meditate for 10 minutes, and then I'd make my bed, and then I'd write down every single thing that I need to do for the whole day. And it's been on every episode. I don't know if my body's blocking it for the people who are watching on YouTube, but I write down everything that I'm going to do, and I can't go to bed unless it's all done. And I usually have about 2 hours at the end of the night where I can just kind of relax and, really take time to myself to chill out, watch some stuff for entertainment on YouTube and stuff like that. But writing all that stuff down every morning and kind of tailoring my environment and my space to what helps me accomplish all the things that I need to do every day.
Yeah, and like you said before, it's great to establish those things from the beginning. If you can, once you buy the whiteboard, if you can from the beginning use it every day, you're going to be in a much better place. I am not as committed to the whiteboard as Joel is. That's something, I think I really wish I would have jumped on earlier. It's never too late to start, but just seeing him make his list and everything, it's kind of inspiring because, he gets them done every day, the entire list. That's something that I really admire about you.
It was cool that thank you very much for that. It was cool. We were talking to my friend, or one of our mutual friends the other day. It was Evan, me, and this guy, and I asked Evan, I was like, I'm pretty sure I've made my bed every single day that we've been at school. I have not gone a day without making my bed. And I'm pretty sure since I started writing all my stuff down, like, it's been a similar situation where I do all the things that I'm supposed to do. That's just a cool thing that I kind of want to pat myself on the back a little bit for that, because it's just become such a routine thing that it's not a big deal to me anymore. But when I look back to when I started, my progress and I've accomplished those goals every single day, and that's just something I think it's good to be proud of.
Yeah, definitely. That's something, I think we all strive for. And it's one of those things, if you're happy with your work environment, we're just kind of using the desk as an example. I think that's a really good example. If you're happy with that, maintain it. It's very easy to let it go. I've noticed I've cleaned my desk on Monday, and by Friday it was like disgusting. There's papers everywhere, and it's kind of hard to work. So you have to stay on top of it, or else it's just gonna go right back to the way it was. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure you're staying on top of it.
I'm definitely the biggest, I guess, advocate for this point, because I am so strict. Like, my Rubik's Cube on my desk is in the perfect spot every single time. It doesn't move. It will not move. And I know when somebody messes with it and moves it. And after the podcast is over, I put my my microphone on the specific spot on my desk. And I know if somebody's moved it. And I think just that's maybe a little bit obsessive, but I think for me it just works really well, because it allows me to look at something and say, okay, at least this is in order, and at least I have this. And I don't know, it's just super important. I love where we are right now. We're going to be moving out of this room in a few weeks, so unfortunately that's us saying goodbye to this space, but coming back and moving into a townhouse is going to be another change that we can use to remotivate and re-engage in our training and our student life. We both go to James Madison University, and being at JMU and having access to we have an amazing gym, and they're amazing facilities, and that's something that I love so much about being in this town, and I know that being here is motivating for me. So once you find a place that you can call home or that pushes you, stay there and make a conscious effort to create your environment and mold your environment around your needs, because it has so much to do with how you function every day. And I'm going back to this example. By default, I wake up every morning and I make my bed and I meditate and I go to the gym. And that's because I've carefully crafted that routine around this space that I'm in.
Yeah, definitely. And we're in a pretty we're really lucky because, like you said, we have these beautiful facilities. But even if you're not in that position, that doesn't mean you're not able to do these things. One example I was thinking of, we live very close to a battlefield, and there's a bunch of trails on it. We've talked about it before, I think, on the podcast. But I've lived in the same house my entire life, and for the first 15 years of my life, I was probably there 3 times. And
I don't think I ever visited this place until I went to high school.
But no, and this can be a park near your house. This can be a new route through your neighborhood. This doesn't have to be, you move shop or, move across the country or, move hours away. This can be, I'm going to find a new place to walk today. It can be as simple as that.
Yeah, exploring different environments is such a key thing, and it's awesome to go out and explore new things. If you feel stuck in a repetitive cycle, I think just go on a hike or put yourself in a different environment. You may find something that you really enjoy, like doing, like maybe going on a hike, like I said earlier, or going surfing or whatever. Or you might find that place that you like really fall in love with. And I think personally, nature is one of the greatest things that you can explore. And I encourage everybody that's listening to go out and find something fun to do outside that they normally wouldn't do.
Yeah. Nature is huge. We're really lucky because we live in a beautiful part of Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, and there's so many trails around. Hikes, camping. You can do, and kayaking. There's the Shenandoah River. We're really lucky to live in such a beautiful spot. And I encourage you to go out and try these things. If you're not able to go hiking or kayaking, go for a walk. It's if you're living in a city, it can be hard to find that natural setting, but you can still accomplish these things. Even if you don't live in the middle of nowhere.
But even then, the concrete jungle, it can be an amazing, beautiful thing. If you go out and explore, you go find a super tall building and look down into the city. That can be a really amazing and an eye-opening experience. Seeing just something that normally you wouldn't see and kind of taking it in for what it is. And we're so lucky, like you said, with where we live in Virginia. We can drive an hour and go on a crazy hike, or we can drive 3 hours and go to the beach, or we can, there's just so much different landscape here. But specifically where we live, I don't think I've seen as many sunsets and beautiful like nights ever before in my life than when I'm here. And we live in a very hilly area, and just finding a tall place to look out and watch and see the sky and just kind of taking that in, and it's just important, I feel like, and it's something that gives you that natural appreciation for where you are and where you exist, and it slows down things and kind of acts as a little bit of a de-stressor, similar to mindfulness or meditation in a way.
Yeah, I was going to talk about we went on a run about a week ago, maybe it was a little longer than that, maybe 2 weeks ago, and we've been on campus for a while now, but about 3 miles away there's this hilltop, and it's barren. There's no trees on or anything like that. And I've always thought, wow, that'd be a good place to go up and see the valley. That'd be a good vantage point. But I always thought it was a construction zone or something. I thought you wouldn't be able to get up there. But one day we decided just to run out in that direction. And I told Joel, I was like, hey, it'd be cool if we get up there. And he's like, yeah, we'll try to find our way up there. And I wasn't thinking we were going to get up there. I thought it would just be impossible, or there'd be a fence or something like that. But it turned out there was a really nice path up to the top of it. And it turned out to be this beautiful vantage point. And like I said, it's 3 miles away from where we are now. And it was really amazing that we had such a beautiful place. Like I said, it's not that far away, so you just got to go out there and explore.
Yeah, like you said, this place was, I think, the tallest point between the two mountains that we live in the valley, or live in between, rather. And just going up there, exactly, finding this space, finding this new place. And I love that example, this vantage point. It is a place that we found that gives us this joy and gives us this excitement. So whatever it is in your life, whether it's a change in your room, rearranging, moving to a different place, find your vantage point. Find the place that excites you, that you can look out and see all the beautiful things that the world around you has to offer. Find a place that motivates you and inspires you and encourages you.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, we're talking about these beautiful scenes in nature, but this can be a cubicle. If you work in a cubicle, you can put things on your desk that are your vantage point, things you care about. Like I have pictures of people I care about. I have kind of like trinkets lying around, and it reminds me of things outside the workspace, things that remind me of not necessarily better things, but things that allow me to be mindful of what really matters in life.
And I always think about vacationing when I think about the concept of environment and how much I love the beach. And if I moved there, if my perspective of everything about it would change. But find a place that you love, or a place that you want to live, or a place that you just love to be in, and then do that. Find it and be in that place. For people who are still living with their parents, or they're in like a toxic environment, and I don't even know the half of it because, I grew up in a very loving and accepting household, but I know there's a lot of people who, like, there's 14-year-old kids who they live in a terrible place and they don't have a lot of access to their parents and stuff like that. And I know how hard that can be, but hopefully you realize that won't be your life forever, and there are always ways out. And eventually you'll find your own space, and it's important to create that space for yourself in a place that inspires you and motivates you, like I said. And again, I can't really empathize as best as I wish I could with a lot of people who are struggling in that regard. But just know that, it will pass, and you'll be able to find a different area, and a new chapter in your life will open to hopefully greater and happier and more fulfilling things.
Yeah, for people who are struggling with their environment, know that there are always opportunities to, to get out of that, or to even revitalize certain things to improve the situation. You talked about it for a split second, but I wanted to go back and talk about even if you are doing these daily things day in and day out, it's good to take a step back and to realize that your environment, your current environment, might hold things that you never noticed before. To be able to say, hey, I've never noticed that. I've never noticed that view before on my commute to work, or I never noticed the view out this window in my office building. So it's important to kind of, you don't have to go on a vacation, to find something new. You can, look out the window and say, yeah, I never noticed that before. And that's really important, because a lot of times we can get caught up in kind of tunnel vision, into our work. And it's important to look around every once in a while.
I agree with that, especially for like those people who can't totally flee their environment and create a new area for themselves. And again, I'm touching a little bit on like younger demographic, a younger audience. Maybe there's like 14 and 15-year-olds that kind of feel like their world's maybe falling to pieces a little bit. Trying to take that step back and appreciating what you do have, and appreciating exactly like you said, that view, or whatever the situation may be. Or you can still change stuff up, you can kind of break your daily routine and habits, but trying to appreciate where you are if you are stuck, I think is just as powerful as completely changing your environment.
Yeah, it's really amazing how much opportunity we have to improve the little things in our lives and to take a step back. I wanted to go back to I don't know if we can just kind of go wherever now, but I want to talk about desk space for a little bit, about keeping it clean. I know I'm not the most tidy person. Joel was talking about how he has everything in an exact spot. One of the things I want to talk about, if you're not the most tidy person, if you don't keep things exactly, orderly 100% of the time, I think it's important to understand that as long as the mess isn't interfering with your work and isn't preventing you from getting things done, that it's okay. That sounds kind of counterpoint to what we're saying, but if you're in this environment and you're able to get things done and you're able to be the most productive you can be, maintain that.
It's all subjective, I think.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. It's all from your point of view.
Yeah, for me, if this thing is out of order or this thing isn't exactly where I want it to be or my folders in my desk aren't in the specific order that I expect them to be, that's something that will kind of, I don't want to say frustrate me, but it will disrupt what I know. And I think everybody has different levels of that. Mine is probably on more of an extreme end, to be honest. But just understand that that's okay. And I also need to understand that it's okay for somebody else to not be as organized or to not have everything as controlled or specific as I have it, because what works for them works for them. And just now I'm realizing, I had a 7th grade science teacher, Mr. Newman. He was one of my favorite teachers of all time. He took a particular liking to me and the guy I sat with, but we stayed after class one time and he was telling us a story about how he went over to his brother's house and he was working on his brother's car with him, and they were doing all this stuff, and they were fixing everything up, and after they did one job, his brother would go back in to the garage and put the tool back where it went, and then he would have to do another job. And even if he had to use the tool again on a later part of the job, he would still put it back. And he was talking about how for him, he's got like these boxes that he's working on his car. He's pulling wrenches. He's taking out bolts and stuff. And then he'll throw a wrench into one of the boxes. And he knows where it is, but it's just not the most organized fashion. So kind of fix the car how you want to fix it. Kind of find your routine. Find the thing that works best for you. And then just kind of stick to it and understand it. And, it's a subjective thing in that way.
Yeah, that's a really good example. The fixing the car example. I can identify with that because I've done that, trying to stay organized, been working on cars with my dad, and I put a tool away, and then a few minutes later I have to go get it again. So it's important to not like trip yourself up when it comes to that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of opportunity to tidy things up, whether that's physically or even mentally. If you're able to clean your desk, that'll definitely help narrow, your work.
And I think everybody has a clear understanding of what they want. I
Yeah.
think that is something that, they always have the answer to. For me, I always want everything so organized, but it's a matter of doing that. And it's kind of taking the time to organize and orient your space and your life how you want it to be. And I think a lot of people don't always get and understand that they can kind of craft their space, but truly you can make it however you want it to be. You can organize things however you want it to be organized, whether it's completely strict, alphabetical, this is how we're doing it, or paper all over the place. As long as I know where they are, like I'll find it. Whatever works is whatever works.
I think one of the main points of this whole podcast today is that your environment is malleable and you can craft it the way you want it. You have the ability to go out and to make the changes that you want. You have the ability to sit at your desk and organize it the way that you want. And even I was thinking about the example of at the gym. If you work out every day or work out, every so often, maybe switch machines. Same type of machine, but maybe it's one closer to the window or it's one farther away from the window, just to be able to experience the different angles.
I really like that example because there's so much benefit in switching up your workouts, and you can work out your chest and your triceps so many different ways, and you don't want to just every week do the same exact workout routine because your muscles will not benefit as much from them. So kind of changing up that workout and kind of going out and just switching things up and changing where you are and changing what you see and changing what you do, it can be a very refreshing thing, and it can overall benefit you in the long run, because like your muscles that need different exercises to more optimally be increase your strength, your environment also needs to be refreshed and changed up, and to give you the more efficient, I guess, lifestyle.
Yeah, and who knows what you'll find. we talked about this a little bit last podcast, but we've been getting into climbing, and we just kind of stumbled upon it almost. We've in the gym facility we use, there's a rock climbing center, and we've seen it, we've walked past it, many times, but just a few weeks ago we decided, why don't we go in there? Why don't we see what this space is about? And we're so glad that we did, because this is a new environment that we're really taking advantage of.
And I'm so happy that you said that, because the last point that I wrote down on my document was there's a certain level of attachment people have to their surroundings and their environment, and home is kind of like a comfort zone in a way. And I understand it's important to have that place or that area that you feel most comfortable in, but there's a ton of value in getting out of your comfort zone. And there's a level of peace and happiness and fulfillment that exists on the other side of comfort. And doing anything to switch it up, I feel like it can be extremely beneficial. And we look down, you walk into the gym we have, and you look down to the left, and then there's the huge climbing facility that we have access to. And Evan and I were like, hey, let's go check that out. And it's opened up so many doors for us and so much enjoyment. And we were there just yesterday working on new routes and trying to climb these new things and increase our skill. And it was probably one of the most fun things that I've done in a while. And it's just super exciting being in that space for me. And had we not gotten out of our comfort zone and explored this new environment, which both of those ideas go very closely hand in hand, we would have never stumbled upon this great thing that we love.
Yeah, it's amazing how just walking down a hallway and checking something out can change so much. I know it's brought me a lot of joy going climbing, and I know it has for you. And this kind of ties everything together, that you have to, like you said, step out of your comfort zone, and you have to be able to understand that your environment really plays a big role in your mental health and how you're doing physically. It really all comes together.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point to leave you guys with that maybe take a look and become conscious of the environment that you're in. Maybe try to switch something up and explore this new environment. And once you find the place that you feel that you love and that you feel comfortable in and that you're most motivated and that you are inspired to wake up in and exist in and operate in every single day, stick to it and don't leave, and be able to benefit from all those great things that come with it, and just truly enjoy and embrace where you are and what you're doing. Thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode. We encourage you all to take a look at the environment that you're in every day and see if you can make some positive changes. This week's end quote is by best-selling author and professional speaker Steve Maraboli. He said, "Allow yourself to let go of the people, thoughts, and situations that poison your well-being. Love yourself enough to create an environment in your life that is conducive to the nourishment of your personal growth."